It's not so much a space dweller, more a land dweller, you know? In life, very few things are certain, but one that is when Seiko recreates a watch. 9 times out of 10, they hit it out of the park. And it's one of my favorite moments in this hobby. All too often, they are faithful one-to-one recreations, and there are so many good things to talk about. But the problems, though, they tend to be very overpriced for what they are, and limited editions, small numbers that the majority of us would never be able to get our hands on. And I'm happy to report that in this instance, not this time. Cue the return of the Seiko 5 Gene Kranz Sportsmatic. In my eye, a perfect reissue for many reasons. Let's get into it. Every year, or every other year, Seiko always delivers a new range of great pieces. But I've got to admit, along with the great modern variants that often come along, I have such a soft spot for their reissue models. Something about 1960s, 1970s Seiko design. Untouchable. I mean, as far as it goes. And it always pulls us back in. It is hard to beat perfection, folks, but they are simply some of the coolest watches ever made. And I'm just the messenger here. The words, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I was doing something, and those words were in the back of my mind. And this watch, I think, perfectly epitomizes that phrase. It's important to say I am not the biggest Seikopath, Seikophile. Compared to some of the most dedicated watch channels out there, I am a novice, and I will always think of myself as a novice in this area of watches. But I do know a thing or two about the 6217, because I own one, and I freaking adore it. Every single thing about these dive watches, their history, I can't get enough of them. But also another very particular Seiko in the Seiko 5 family, the reference 6119, because I have covered military watches too often in the past, and one of the most famous or infamous, the MACV-SOG 6119-8100. Got it. Seiko 5's, they are just great. Arriving in their catalogs, early 1960s, I'm going to say 1963. They've always been known as quirky, affordable alternatives. These were aimed towards younger wearers, those who had a bit of a sporty side to them, someone who was outgoing. And all of these watches, they were so enticing to get into Seiko. And the key feature that made these watches so appealing was the fact that they were self-dating, the fact that they had rotating date windows, day-date complications that anybody could afford without losing an arm or a leg buying one. Most of us know that Rolex was one of the first brands to debut the automatic date-changing complication, and it very much perpetuated wristwatches into a new era. But Seiko and the Seiko 5, they very much democratized this complication so that everyone could get a chance to own one. And as we know, they made thousands of variations, the first one being the 61-5D, a watch that the brand has recreated as the 55th anniversary of the Seiko 5. There were dressier pieces thrown into the mix, but sports was always at the heart of the Seiko 5's design core. And by the time they reached the later half of the 1960s, these watches finding their stride, so I believe they really started to take off, literally. You see, modern Seiko 5's, they're a mixed bag today. Some excellent models dotted in there, but some others that are a little bit head-scratching. I believe it was 2019 when these watches returned with a fresh facelift. And everything, down to the original Seiko 5 logo being changed. Not everyone's cup of tea, and I'm not a fan of it either, really. Many pieces have adapted and changed under this name. The SKX, which was also discontinued and rebirthed under this line. But in here, there are also some gems, like the new line of GMT complications, and even some of their more experimental pieces, like the watches created in collaboration with Rowing Blazers. There are plenty of great options of these watches out there to choose. You don't have to find the most recent ones. The classic designs are just as good. Okay, just a side note, it's a very hot day while I'm recording this, so I'm going to change my shirt. Now, as I was saying, Gene Kranz, he made this reference 6119-8460 famous because he wore it on his wrist as director of NASA during, well, the entire space race, all through the Mercury, Gemini, and Apollo missions, including Apollo 11. It's not so much a space dweller, more a land dweller, you know? But it's got some street credit to its name. Now, the most interesting part of this reissue and the story is that this is a very rare vintage Seiko to find in the collecting world. Even the most dedicated collectors, they struggle to come across good, clean examples. So right now we have a good formula to work with. It's got a great backstory, some interesting history. It's a very rare vintage Seiko to go after, but why am I talking about this piece today? I'm sure many of you will agree with me here, especially the Seiko diehards. This watch perfectly epitomizes the Seiko 5 in every way, shape and form. The Sportsmatic diver with that iconic 60s dial, 60s handset, contrasting date and day window, the correct text, but paired with that late 60s cushion case, the push-pull crown and tank tread bracelet. As far as a design of this nature goes, it's difficult to get any better. And then we get down to those daily essentials. What makes this a perfect watch? Diameter 38mm. A big diameter for the time in 1968, but today it's a perfect contemporary size. A case thickness of 11.5mm. I guess one of the only drawbacks to this watch being period correct is it does have a hard Lex crystal. These watches, though, yes, they are special editions and they are limited, not by 1,000 or 2,000, the typical numbers, but 10,000. 10,000 for each dial, black dial and the opaline. Now, I don't like talking about prices on this channel, but for this one instance, I'm going to. Because you're getting this exquisite design, this icon of 1960s Seiko for less than 500 bucks. We weigh up for inflation, and I'm going to assume that this cost maybe double it did back in the day. Now, all too often we celebrate great designs and these wins from excellent brands. I think of Omega with the 38mm Aquaterra and their first Omega in space. Think of Rolex and the Explorer. Think of Longines and the Spirit Collection. But a Seiko reissue like this says a lot. Maybe it's a sign of the times. This particular watch and this family, they've always been designed to be attainable. That has been the Seiko 5's backbone. And to see a special edition watch of this kind only limited to 10,000 pieces for a great price, I don't believe Seiko only knocked it out of the park for a design point of view, but the fact that we can talk about these watches and actually wear them. Many of us here are going to be getting them in our hands. And it is such a good move from the brand. Honestly, it's one of my favorite watch releases of the year. It's not even out yet. So where many Seiko releases can leave us cold, Seiko 5 releases can either be a hit or miss. Their reissues tend to always be the exception. And with this particular watch, you're getting everything with an added asterisk. The Seiko enthusiast's watch through and through, a design enthusiast's watch. The perfect size, go anywhere, do anything, with far more than just a subtle nod to this brand's history. Everything from those drilled lug holes to the contrasting day and date and the original handset. I am on board. I believe that Seiko nailed it with this one, and I want to hear your thoughts about it. Do you believe that the Seiko 5 Gene Kranz is going to be a popular watch? He asks sarcastically. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. See you in the next one.